Hey everyone, welcome back to another hardware news recap for the week. We are back. We were on a short break where we were working on just general improvements to testing processes, SOPs, methodologies, things around the office that'll improve our quality and consistency, test data, all that going forward. So we took a quick break from publishing, but we're back and excited to be working on another hardware news recap. In this one, there's some rumors like RTX 4090 discussion about an alleged Founders Edition. We'll also be talking about some hard news like Intel officially delaying its Arc GPUs. Again, eventually we're gonna have to stop covering that news because it's no longer news if it's constantly occurring. We'll also be going over some of AMD's plans to compete with Nvidia as GPU prices fall. That's right, they finally are. Let's get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by Arctic and the Liquid Freezer 2 line of liquid coolers, which tested among the best in our thermal charts for CPU coolers. The Arctic Liquid Freezer series has had continual advancement since our original review, with updates in the mounting kit, including an AMD offset bracket for better thermals, and a longer warranty. Arctic also has its MX5 thermal compound available on the market now if you need some thermal paste for your regular maintenance. Learn more at the links in the description below. First up, just a really quick update for you, some positive news to set the mood for the week before we get into GPU prices and availability. So our latest charity drive just concluded. We ended up donating $18,900 US. That was 100% of the profits from our latest Hardware Hearts charity shirt. So massive shout out and thank you to everyone in the audience who supported the efforts. This money goes toward World Central Kitchen and towards IFAW. We split the money between the two of them, so each of them gets $9,450 USD. World Central Kitchen works worldwide to provide food to people all over the world struggling with food supply, and International Fund for Animal Welfare supports both people and animals worldwide. And as far as animals, that includes everything from endangered species or critical animals to important ecosystems. So that's $9,450 to each, 18.9K total. I think that might be the most we've ever done in one go as a charity donation, or very close to it, if not. So again, huge thanks and shout out to everyone in the audience. It shows what this community, the computer hardware community, can achieve when it's not busy bickering over pre-builts, Intel, AMD, and Nvidia. But we can all go back to bickering now. So let's start with Nvidia's RTX 4090. We have a challenge for all of our viewers. First of all, just go ahead and start writing a comment right now. We want to know what people think the RTX 4090, when it comes out, will actually cost. Not the street price, the eBay price, but actual MSRP. What do you think it's going to be? And we're mostly just curious so we can look back on this comment section in the future and see if anyone got it right. But first off, just to get this out of the way, we have spoken with some of our own sources and independently verified that yes, an RTX 4090 is actively in the works. It's being tested and built, included by add-in board partners, and that's supposed to ship alongside the first round of 40 series cards, so probably later this year if the current schedule is kept. That's what they're targeting. In other words, it's not going to be like a TI type launch where it's maybe 6 months after the launch of the architecture or the rest of the cards that start the series. So the latest leak is once again from Kopite7Kimi on Twitter, and at this point we should probably just go ahead and ask Kopite7Kimi how to actually say that name. You can go ahead and tweet it. We'll get it right in the next one. This indicates that the RTX 4090 is running on AD102-300. That would be the GPU silicon or the die labeling. And it claims that it'll have 16,128 CUDA cores with floating point 32 or single precision compute capabilities, that's FP32, running with 24 gigabytes of DDR6X at a boosted 21 gigabytes per second speed. Some of this was already kind of known. Micron, for example, is working on that higher speed memory right now. The current TDP expectation is 450 watts, which is higher than anything shipping right now. And as a reminder, board partners are able to change the VBIOS power targets to allow for higher clocks or overclocking. So you may see higher still. Don't be surprised, in other words, if you see like a 550 watt card come out. So the leak suggests that just quote 2x 3090. How far you want to read into that? Well, it's not clear right now whether that means 2 times the performance of a 3090 in real world gaming scenarios, in certain production scenarios, in RT, in a tensor performance in FP64, whatever. Realistically, probably we won't see a 100% increase strictly in average FPS in GPU-bound scenarios, but we'll see. Maybe it has more to do with the memory bind and memory throughput. Either way, we'll reserve judgment for the launch itself, but that's kind of the rumor right now, and yes, there is a 4090 coming that's actually known. Now, the next one is also related to the 4090. This is a spotting of the Founders Edition cooler. This was posted on ChipHell, which is a Chinese forum where there's a lot of discussion about upcoming hardware, and typically you see early leaks on ChipHell. It's been around a long time. The leak has since been removed. Big surprise, this normally happens. And the rumored Founders Edition cooler has a vapor chamber for GPU contact. We're looking closely at the images, and it has thermal pads directly connecting from the memory modules to the vapor chamber. The VRM has a more standard protruding aluminum contact that'll join with thermal pads to contact the VRM, and this remains an axial fan design for a large fin stack. So it looks like about 2.5 to 3 slots that will primarily exhaust out the sides. All of that is similar to the existing FE cooler. It looks very close to what we've seen with 3090s, and a little unpolished in some areas, like some of the contacts for VRM components, but that may be cleaned up with time. So that coincides with the previous rumor. Next one is news. This is not a rumor. Intel's Arc is delayed again. Now it is set for summer of 2022. Just sort of broadly speaking, depending on where you live, summer is a very long time. So maybe they can switch. They can be like, no, we meant Australian summer, which is in like 6 months from now. So that gives them the whole year to work on it. Once upon a time, these cards were set to debut in 2021. We actually saw them with Gordon Mahon from PC World back at CES some years ago. But this was before being pushed back to a Q2 2022 release timeline. Now Intel is targeting summer 2022, whatever exactly that means. For the launch date, it's probably about Q3, beginning of Q4. Intel technically has soft launched its Arc 3 with Samsung using the GPU for its Galaxy Book 2 Pro laptop. Still, availability is limited to South Korea, and it's now that Intel is just working on expanding that availability globally. Additionally, Intel is facing some software-related issues combined with lockdowns that are affecting its supply chains. The company said, quote, "We have been working closely with OEM partners to get Intel Arc graphics mobile designs fully launched. First was Samsung, which started with availability in Korea and is expanding globally. We plan to have broader OEM availability at this point. However, we have had some software readiness delays, basically admitting that they at least shipped the ones in Korea with not ready software, but okay." And Intel goes on to say, together with COVID lockdowns impacting global supply chains, OEM designs are only this month becoming more widely available. Intel noted that it's currently working with other OEMs, so Asus and HP were listed as being sort of the next in line to push the Arc 3 GPUs globally in laptops. Arc 5 and Arc 7 are slated to be available in summer, and these naming schemes obviously follows the Intel i3, i5, i7, so you can expect that higher is better here. As for Intel's desktop cards, the ones that we're all very interested in, these are looking like a release for entry-level A-series GPUs, the low-end ones, in China first, with the rest of the world following. This will be through OEMs and system builders, so we might see some in something like Asus Systems or MSI, for example, while retail standalone components will follow after. Intel states that the initial launch in China is due to strong demand and close proximity to board components, and the sort of obvious point here is they're trying to shortcut the global logistics nightmare that currently exists, where they probably have to put stuff on a boat to avoid the massive high price for air freight and not destroy their margins, but then boats take like 50, 60 days right now to actually get to port and unload, and then you truck it to wherever it's going. So that's probably what they're trying to do here, is just, if it's built in China, they're trying to start selling it immediately. And that's maybe points to concerns where if Intel's looking at the timelines going, okay, if we put these on a boat because we don't want to destroy our margins with air freight, they're going to get to the US or to Europe around when the RTX 40 series is starting to roll out, or at least have a lot of information available. Intel might be going, we will get destroyed if we come to market competing with the 30 series when the 40 series launches. So we need to ship something now. That's my read on the situation. So again, Intel's A-series, A3, A5, A7 will be targeting a summer release, and then again going worldwide through retail channels. Up next, AMD news coinciding with the release of the 650 series of cards, 6950, 6750, 6650 XT cards. AMD has released a new AMD software preview driver, May 2022 version. This is an incomplete driver. It's a preview, as the name suggests, that claims to increase the performance significantly of existing AMD GPUs. AMD is citing double-digit performance uplift in some of its own internal testing. We typically validate that before sort of committing to it, but that's what the company is saying. And AMD is also noting that the timeline for the finalized version of the driver is not yet known. AMD said that it has made several improvements that it's shipping with the latest driver package. That includes tweaks to Radeon Super Resolution, or RSR, different again from FSR, and DirectX 11 optimizations across several games. This seems to be where most of AMD's performance gains come from. AMD notes that through its own internal testing and development, the preview driver can deliver an average of 10% increase in performance in DX11-based games, while other titles can benefit by as much as a 30% increase. The titles AMD tested include Assassin's Creed Odyssey, citing a 28% increase, World of Warcraft Shadowlands, or 30%, and GTA 5, where it's showing an 11% increase. The full suite of games tested showed performance improvements anywhere between 3% at the low end and 17%, sort of ignoring those outliers with WoW and with Assassin's Creed. Up next, this one will relate to the last story in the news, which is going to be about GPU prices falling, finally. And availability has been a lot better lately. If you haven't checked, we noted this in our 6950 XT review, where at the time of reviewing at least, we saw 3080s were pretty close to MSRP, which is awesome. That is such a relief to see. It's been a much different world reviewing GPUs the last 2 years, so we're happy to see that. Anyway, prices are falling, and amidst that, AMD has quietly resurrected its Raise the Game bundle, and will likely be making more noise about it soon. This is where AMD bundles games, often ones without much value, with its graphics cards. Maybe it'll pick better ones this time. We don't know. It's yet to be seen. AMD has a page up on its website indicating the return of the bundle, and has not yet confirmed the entirety of the games that will be available on tap, but it is at least starting to promote it. What we do know now is that AMD is looking to run a new combo for Raise the Game from May 10th through August 13th, and that's also subject to how long the coupon codes or the digital keys last for the games. Unsurprisingly, the entire fleet of the RX 6000 and RX 69, 67, 6650 XT cards are available for the promotion. The only limitation is thus far we only know of Sniper Elite 5 and the new Saints Row being included in this, which I was not aware that those were coming out this soon, so I'm actually kind of looking forward to those for testing. But Anantech found those in the list. The rest will be revealed later. Now, the launch date of the campaign does coincide with those GPU prices, so we think this strategy is a two-step strategy. First, our sort of view of the situation is that in an instance where AMD cards are now going to be competing with Nvidia cards, not based on just what you can get, but also based on value and what's available, AMD is probably trying to step in and say, look at this additional difficult to quantify value. Obviously it adds no value to get a free game if you're not going to play that game, you don't care about the game, or if the game is available for pretty cheap anyway, because you're going to be stuck with the GPU for years, and the game you might get bored of in a month or whatever. But they're trying to add some intangible or difficult to quantify value with the cards that will make it easier for a user to choose theirs versus an Nvidia card that is simply just competing on price performance, for example. Now, the second step in the strategy might be that AMD is trying to bolster the desirability of its product while the GPU prices are falling, so it does not have to pull down its own prices too much as the market shifts to a newer, lower price model for video cards. Up next, this is pretty interesting news. So Nvidia is moving to an open source GPU kernel. This is after years of discussion and speculation. Nvidia has finally taken its GPU drivers open source, asterisk, sort of, at least part of the drivers. So the move is equal parts huge step and boon for Linux user as it is for developers. It also brings Nvidia a certain degree of parity with Intel and AMD, both of which have been maintaining open source driver code for some time now. Nvidia detailed some of its open source initiative in a company blog post. It said, quote, "This release is a significant step toward improving the experience of using Nvidia GPUs in Linux for tighter integration with the OS and for developers to debug, integrate, and contribute back. For Linux distribution providers, the open source modules increase ease of use. They also improve the out-of-the-box user experience to sign and distribute the NVIDIA GPU driver. Canonical and SUSE can immediately package the open source kernel modules with Ubuntu and SUSE Linux enterprise distributions." Now, as with all things Linux, I look forward to your concerns about my pronunciation of the distributions in the comments. Now let's talk about Arc versus Arch. How about we start that debate?
Thanks, Steve.
Both Nvidia and Phoronix are reporting on this. The company is releasing the open source kernel driver module under a dual MIT or GPL for the licensing. Additionally, only Nvidia's kernel code is going open source right now. So that means some aspects of it like OpenCL, Vulkan, and the CUDA libraries are all remaining closed source other than what was leaked in the compromise or the hack previously. The open source driver code will only be available for Turing and newer GPUs. That, as a reminder, is the RTX 20 series and then forward. And the new driver code won't be available mainline just yet. Phoronix is, however, reporting that certain parts of the API or the ABI aren't finalized, and the new Linux GPU kernel code begins with the R515 release for the drivers, and Linux users can already find that code over on GitHub. Maybe we should pronounce it GitHub. We just add to the pronunciation debate in the comments. Up next, we're back to rumor land for a second. This one is a rumor stemming from video cards, and you can take your daily dose of sodium with it. AMD is working towards a new branded technology for its Ryzen platform, where it will take advantage of what it's calling Smart Access Storage, or SAS. Not to be confused with the other SAS, or the other SAS. There's a lot of SASs out there, or there's many SASs. This is a different one. Smart Access Storage, as reported on here, would accelerate attached storage devices in Ryzen-based systems in a similar fashion to how SAM, or Smart Access Memory, would work for GPUs and CPUs. Now, this particular rumor is unconfirmed, but it's also not a novel idea, so it seems likely that it could be happening. For example, we've seen this type of technology coming out with Microsoft, with the Windows 10 and 11 updates and Microsoft Xbox X and S consoles for direct storage technology. We've also seen stuff like this for the PlayStation 5. So it aligns with that. According to the rumor, AMD is looking to debut the technology in Corsair's equally rumored gaming laptop, which is a Corsair Voyager laptop. That one is supposedly set for a June 2022 release date. That happens to coincide with Computex 2022, which is on for the first time in years in person, though we won't be going to this one. AMD will also be giving the keynote for, as well as having a general presence to detail upcoming products and plans. If Smart Access Storage exists, and it probably does, we'll know more within a couple weeks, actually. Up next, Gigabyte, or as we affectionately call it, Gigglebit. Gigabyte addresses the Z690i Aorus Ultra motherboard issues. So for the past several months, there have been continued reports from users mostly experiencing issues with Gigabyte Z690i motherboard, including WHEA errors, system instability, and a lag, just to name a few things. Now, the common thread between these issues seems to be the use of PCIe Gen 4. And the workaround was disabling PCIe Gen 4 in the BIOS and reverting the board back to PCIe 3.0. Now, obviously, this is what you would say is, in management speak, suboptimal. Gigabyte has responded, acknowledging that both the issue and the PCIe Gen 3 workaround are actual things, and has said the following, quote, "While investigating reports of customers experiencing issues with their Z690i Aorus Ultra, we discovered that there are certain cases of system instability and WHEA PCIe errors when paired with some PCIe Gen 4 graphics card. Setting the PCIe speed to Gen 3 through BIOS will eliminate these symptoms. Clearly, customers who paid for and care about PCIe Gen 4 aren't going to be happy just downgrading it to PCIe Gen 3, especially with new cards coming out so quickly. It's actually going to be relevant. So Gigabyte is also offering affected customers a new motherboard in return in the form of the Z690i Aorus Ultra Plus, which is supposed to fix the issue, or if you've had it, just a full refund, which, to Gigabyte's credit, that is actually a great move and the right thing to do. Hopefully they follow through with it properly. The RMA, or the refund, is available for customers who have either the DDR4 or the DDR5 version. It applies to all models of this, and that's for the Z690i board specifically, so no other boards named in this. Next one is an Nvidia security update for GTX 600 and 700 series video cards. Actually, I'd be really curious to hear how many of you are using these cards still. These are Kepler class cards, the architecture that is pretty old at this point, but we've done revisits on the 780 Ti as recently as a couple years ago, and it was still a reasonable card, so we'd like to hear if you're still using one. Now, the update is 473.47. This is the first driver update in quite a while to come out to Kepler cards, and it is for a few security reasons that Nvidia has pointed out. The company said, quote, Nvidia has released a software security update display driver for desktop Kepler series GeForce GPUs, which are no longer supported by game-ready drivers. Nvidia said this update addresses issues that may lead to, quote, multiple security impacts. And it says that critical security updates will be available on systems utilizing desktop Kepler series GPUs through September 2024. There's not a ton of detail on which specific CVEs or vulnerabilities are being patched here, but if you're on 600 or 700, or even if you're using one in a secondary system like a home server or something, you should definitely just go ahead and update just to have the security patch. All right, next one. Intel data center GPUs are shown. This is pretty cool. So Intel's officially shown off some of its Arc GPUs for the data center. These are in the Arctic Sound family. Sound as in that's part of the name, Arctic Sound, not a sound card. Saw some people asking about if Intel was launching a sound card on Reddit, and that's not what this is. Not sure if they're launching one, but it's not this. Patrick Kennedy from Serve the Home wrote a story about the new devices. He went to an event and reported on it. We'd recommend you check out his full story if you want to learn more about it. But we'll recap one of the highlights here. So on the accelerator side, Intel's been working on AV1 encode and decode support for its Arc GPUs. This is a benefit, especially for some of the accelerator cards that are pictured in the story, and it's one of Intel's high points or its key advantages against competitors because it's technically first here, although it does have to get a mass rollout before Nvidia and AMD end up with the same technology. So these are useful as video compression cards or video processing, streaming cards in general. Right now, Intel has no real competition here. And Intel's media, it calls it supercomputer card, or Arctic Sound M, is shipping around the summer, and it's already in sampling stages. The card can support 8 simultaneous 4K streams, or for peak Twitch degeneracy, it can support 30 1080p streams simultaneously. And it also claims it can support 30 cloud gaming streams. We don't have further details on what precisely that means, but it is on one of Intel's marketing slides. Intel boasts that it is the industry's first open source media solution, and again, boasts that it's the first AV1 encoder. Now, the cards shown are, for example, 75 watts to 150 watts. These have availability for PCIe Gen 4, and they're supposed to start shipping in third quarter 22 for consumer. They're already in sampling stages for partners. And as far as some of the photography, we won't show all of it. Check out the Serve the Home article for that. It's really interesting stuff, but some of it, they've got a few cards with PCIe connectors, some that are half height or short length to fit into server boxes or small form factor enclosures for processing video streams. And as you would expect, those are also capable of being low power solutions. For the aesthetic on these, they're pretty simple. It's basically a fin stack on top of an accelerator or a GPU, depending on the solution, on a PCB with what looks like maybe an aluminum faceplate or shroud, or in the very least, just sort of a brushed finish on it. And most of the airflow for those is going to be coming from elsewhere, like forced in through the front of the chassis and through the card for the cooling solution. Asus claims that GPU demand from mining is finally dropping, and it thinks the supply is going to stabilize as a result. So this is one of the more positive stories this week. In a bit of positive news for the graphics card market, Asus recently held its investor meeting for first quarter of 2022 earnings. And in the investor meeting, co-CEO Mr. Tsu stated that the company believes that the demand for GPUs among miners is waning, quote, because the demand for cryptocurrency mining on GPU shipments has been slowly coming down, the demand for graphics cards across the market is normalizing. This is via PC Mag reporting. This statement is mostly corroborated by the fact that GPUs have actually been in stock lately, for the most part, and prices have actually been coming down. So it doesn't take a seer to see that mining is also affecting this. The catalyst for the shrinking demand, as Asus points out, is Ethereum prices plummeting, combined with the future proof-of-stake model for the cryptocurrency, whereby GPUs won't be needed as they are now with the current proof-of-work model. Now, formally speaking, strictly, Asus did stop short of saying the overall market or the prices will normalize, as demand for gaming is still strong. Quote, because the demand from cryptocurrency is disappearing, it's made us wonder if the pricing for GPUs will also normalize. They didn't commit to it. The quote continues, in reality, the demand for gaming is still strong. We don't think we can necessarily meet all the demand. Now, of course, this is following Nvidia not quite disclosing the cryptocurrency mining sales of GPUs back in 2018, whereby investors were more or less led to believe that those were gaming components being sold. Nvidia paid a slap on the wrist fine of only $5 or $6 million or so. So in other words, kind of it's still difficult to completely decouple gaming and mining purchases, at least at a consumer or a low retail to purchaser level. So we'll see how that works out. So anyway, that's it for hardware news this week. Subscribe for more. We are happy to be back making videos. We're still going to have scattered couple days off here and there, so you'll see some publishing gaps. That's intentional. We're just sort of trying to take the time now between these major launches before all the new stuff rolls out to improve processes and get some really cool new stuff underway working in the lab. So I'm excited about that. But you can subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly, like by grabbing some of our mod mats, our coasters, shirts, or other items, or patreon.com/gamersnexus. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.